So today I'm going to be making cheese, and yesterday I made a thing of Colby. I used 1.5 gallons, so I am using much smaller portions than what all the recipes recommend. Everything that I've ever seen is for like big batch, unless you're doing store-bought milk. So all the like raw milk recipes that I've seen are for like 5.5 to like 6.5 gallons of milk. I just don't have that. So yesterday I wanted to experiment with the Colby, and everything seemed to be okay. The hardest part I'm finding is because I don't have a press, so figuring out, I just stack cast iron skillets on top. So trying to figure out how many cast iron skillets to put on top per like either low, medium, or high like pressure. And that is truly the hardest part, just because there's really not numbers to it. It's just like a guessing game. But I'm gonna go ahead and get 2 gallons of milk in here, and I'm gonna do some cheddar cheese today. Again, it's a small batch. And I'm just gonna bring you guys along with me and tell you what I've learned and what These 2 gallon jugs are from this morning's milk. And then I do have about a quart of milk from last night's milking. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in here because we didn't get exactly 2 gallons. It was a little less than 2 gallons. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that quart of milk in. And it's not 24 hours old because it got milked last night. So as long as you're using like same day milk, like less than 24 hours is what I'm gonna go by, just so it's not too old, because they do recommend using like same day milk or 24-hour milk just because of the cold loving bacteria that it gets whenever it's put in the fridge. This is that, it's really like a quart, so it will make exactly about 2 gallons of milk in here. Maybe a tad bit more, but we're just gonna go with the 2 gallon recipe. So I just now put my thermometer on here, and then I'm gonna let this come up to 88 degrees, and then I will tell you guys what we're gonna do next. But I just have it on low, and it'll probably take it at least like 30, maybe 45 minutes to get heated up because it was in the fridge. So I'm gonna let that heat. And the only 2 things that I've bought for cheese making so far is this thermometer, and I bought 2 forms, and I want to say I spent less than like 30 bucks because this was $10, and then the forms, they were like 15, I think. I got a 2-pack. So it is 11 o'clock, and this needs flipped. So it actually turned out a lot better than I thought it would, but it didn't press out like even on the edges. So like, I'll show you guys it later. It did on the bottom, but I don't know if you can see like over here. So I don't know if I should have put more weight on it and it wasn't like a firm enough press or what, or if there was just like an uneven amount of curds. And this is Colby, but it is not going to be like a marbled cheese. It's only marbled because my curd size was off. So the white and the yellow, like that is only because of the curd size was off. Normally the Colby that you get at the store, it's because they dye it, so that's why it's marbled. So it'll still taste like a Colby, but it won't be marbled necessarily. So I'm just gonna flip this over and put it back in here and let it sit for another 6 hours. And I sprinkled salt on it on the other side, like whenever I first put it in, just because I've seen other people do that. I don't know if you're supposed to, so I'm not gonna put it on this side just because I've not seen them do that. So I'm learning, and it's all just like trial and error right now at this point, because I have no idea if this is even gonna turn out right or good, but I have to wait 2 months to even find out. So this, like a Colby ages for like 2 to 3 months, and then the cheddar I'm making today, I think it ages 6 months. So maybe 3, I can't remember, but it is all a learning curve. And this bucket I already had, and then I don't have a lid, so I'm just gonna put a plate on it, but it'll work for now until I get another salt bucket, because I do want one with a lid. That way I can just put this whole thing in the fridge and don't have to keep putting it in a glass jar. So we're at like 80 degrees. So while this is finishing heating up to 88, I wanted to talk about the calcium chloride. So typically if you're using raw milk, you do not need to use calcium chloride, because the raw milk is already supposed to have all the properties to be able to make cheese on its own, except for the rennet. So if you're using raw milk, then you're not supposed to need the calcium chloride. But after reading and seeing a lot of videos, I think I'm going to use it just in case, because I've seen some people say that the longer that your cow is in milk, then it will decrease the volume that you'll get. But this, if you put calcium chloride in there, it'll help you get a good cheese yield. And then some people say that they just put it in their raw milk anyways, and it does help with yield compared to not doing it. So I am gonna put it in there today, and I didn't put it in yesterday because I just made this last night. And you can make calcium chloride at home. You probably already have the stuff. So all it is if you have pickle crisp, then you already have it. It's the granule form of it, and you just have to turn it into a liquid. So you just take 30 grams of the pickle crisp and 70 grams of filtered water. You just want to make sure that there's no chlorine or anything like that in your water. And so I did use water from our reverse osmosis system. That's what I use for everything. And you just have to shake it whenever you get it out of the fridge because it will like settle on the bottom. But whenever you mix the granules of calcium chloride with water, there is going to be a chemical reaction. So you need to make sure you use a glass bowl and a wood spoon. Do not use metal. And the liquid is going to get hot, and you just don't want to breathe it in whenever you're mixing it up. You just put it in a jar and put it in your fridge. So that's what I'm using, and you can order this if you don't want to make it. It's cheap. I want to say it's like $3 or something like that, but then you have to pay shipping. So if you have the granules on hand, then probably just go ahead and mix it up. It's cheap, it's easy, so that's what I did. But I am going to decrease the amount that you would put in for store-bought milk, just because I do know that there's already like proponents of calcium chloride in my milk. Whenever you're cheese making, the rule of thumb is for every gallon of milk that you're using, you're going to use a quarter teaspoon of this. And I'm not going to do that much. So I'm going to do, there's 2 gallons of milk in here. So I'm going to do a quarter teaspoon for both. So I'm going to do like 1/8 of a teaspoon per gallon. That's going to be my rule of thumb. Because I don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, then it can just ruin your cheese altogether. So you want to make sure that you don't put too much. So I'm going to do 1/8 per gallon. But once this comes up to 88 degrees, then I'm going to add my calcium chloride, and I have to add 1/3 cup of my Clabber starter. And my Clabber starter does have the cream on it still. You can see the cream line, hopefully. The yellow up here at the top. I'm going to scrape this off, and I'll just give it to our pigs just because, I don't know, I feel like I just need the white. So that's, you don't have to, but that's what I do. And yesterday I put the Clabber starter in place of like a thermophilic or a mesophilic starter, cheese starter, and it worked perfectly fine. Like I got a cheese wheel, so that was awesome. And so we're at 88 degrees, so I'm just going to turn this heat off. And I forgot to say, if you are doing store-bought milk, then your recipe is going to be completely different. So you probably don't even want to follow this or watch it, just because mine is for raw milk. So I'm trying to keep all of the good bacteria intact. And with store-bought milk, all of it's already been pasteurized, so you can take it up to a higher temperature and it's going to be fine. But I just don't want to take mine up that high because I do not want to ruin the bacteria that's in it. So if you're using store-bought milk, then you probably need to go find a different tutorial. And honestly, a cheese book would probably be best for you because it is very straightforward in a cheese book like that. And you can just buy the ingredients that it says to buy. But I'm going to mix up this calcium chloride. Add a quarter teaspoon of it. And then my Clabber, I need 1/3 cup of it. As you can see, it is very thick and jiggly. That is what you want. I can't get it to focus, but it's very thick, and that is what you want. So I'm just gonna dump this in here. And make sure you keep some of your Clabber every time. I threw my Clabber away on accident. I gave it to our pigs. Whenever you stir, stir up and down, and you just want to stir for like 30 seconds just to get all of that incorporated and the Clabber broken up in there. But I don't know if I said it, just make sure your heat is off. But as I was saying, I accidentally gave our Clabber to our pigs, and I gave up the whole entire thing to them on accident. I made something out of it, I can't even remember, and I thought I was done with it and just dumped it into the feed bucket, and then it took me about a week and a half to get another one made. So that's why I'm not making cheese sooner, but it gave me more time to learn because it did take about a week and a half for me to get another Clabber starter made. After you've mixed for about 30 seconds or so, put the lid back on, and you're going to set a timer for 40 minutes. And just let it sit for 40 minutes with the lid on. So I wanted to talk about cheese books and stuff, and this is the only one that I have. It's the David Asher, And this book is really great if you're wanting to learn to make raw cheese and just about like the proper like conditions that you need for it. So like cleaning, like handling, like how to store it, everything like that. This is a really good book for that. But to be honest, it doesn't really have that many recipes in it that I would actually use. So the only one that I would actually use is probably the cheddar and the mozzarella. It does have a natural mozzarella in here. But other than that, like I don't really plan on, not right now anyways, I don't plan on like branching out and making tons of different types of cheese. I'm just going to start with what we buy from the grocery store. So we buy a lot of cheddar, Colby, pepper jack, Monterey Jack, mozzarella, and that's really about it. Like we don't buy too many cheeses. Parmesan, I am going to make some Parmesan. But to be honest, you do not need a cheese book unless you just absolutely want one, or you're more of a reading type of person and that's how you learn best. So sometimes I am, like I said, with my directions, I just need it spelled out clearly for me. So this was very helpful, but I don't really plan on getting many recipes. So it's been 40 minutes and the heat is still off. We're not going to turn that back on or anything. But this is animal rennet. Mine is just veal rennet. It doesn't have a brand or anything on it. It just has the store information where I bought it. So I know everybody likes the New England cheesemaking, so if you need rennet, you can get on their website and order some. But rennet is the one thing that you have to have for every cheese, even if it is raw milk. So I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon to 1/4 cup of water and just very gently mix that. And now I'm just going to pour the 1/4 cup of water and the rennet in. And just mix in an up and down motion. With cheese, it's always an up and down motion. And you're just going to mix for like 30 minutes. Or not 30 minutes, sorry, 30 seconds. After the 30-second mix, then you're just going to put the lid back on and let it set for 30 minutes. And then we're going to come back and check for a clean break. It's been about 40 minutes, but I'm going to check for a clean break. I got distracted and did not check it at 30. So yeah, we're not even close. So I'm going to set another timer for 30 minutes, probably at least. And then we'll come back and check this. So this ended up going for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And it now has a clean break. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these curds. I'm going to use this. It's not even a curd knife. It's actually a cake decorating, like icing thing. But it's long and it works perfect. So I'm just going to cut these into probably like 1/2-inch cubes. Now that they're cut, I'm going to put the lid back on this and let them set for 5 minutes. They need to toughen up for 5 minutes. Otherwise, they're just going to turn to mush whenever you go to turn the heat back on. So I'm going to let this sit and I'll be back. Okay, so it has been 5 minutes and the next step is set your timer back to 45 minutes and turn your heat on low. You want this, so this part of the cheese making process always confused me with the directions that people posted and I just did not understand. It was never clear on what to do exactly because they said stir, but I never knew if you were supposed to stir the entire time, and yes you are. So this is the longest part of the cheese making process, and so for 45 minutes we're going to stand here with the heat on low and we're going to stir. So you have to stir very gently because you can just destroy your curds pretty much if you stir too hard. So you're going to stir very gently, and this is the longest process of the whole entire thing. So you just have to stand here and stir. Also, we're going to be heating this up to 100 degrees, but you do not want to turn on your heat and it start heating up too fast. So I put mine on low. Actually, no, I put it on simmer. So I actually put mine on simmer, and because low is even too fast on my stove. So I only have a low and simmer function. Like I don't have numbers like modern day stoves have. So mine, a simmer is probably a 1 for me, to be honest. So you want the entire 45 minutes for this to heat up to 100 degrees. You do not want it to heat up to 100 degrees within 20 minutes. You want it to take the full 45 minutes. Hopefully that makes sense because that was the most confusing part for me. And you just want it to take the entire time that you are stirring to come up to 100 degrees. And if mine starts to heat too fast, I will turn the heat off and let it sit for a couple minutes and then turn it back on. So right now what I'm doing is just trying to loosen up these curds from the edge and just make sure that they can move. And I do not go through here and just start stirring really hard. I let it sit here for a second. As long as it can move like this, it's not going to stick on the bottom and it's not going to like melt or conform into one big curd again. So I just do this for a second and then I will lightly stir. But as this progresses, I will continue to show you, and the whey will start to separate from these curds. Whenever you go to start stirring on the bottom, just do it very gently and carefully and they will start to break up. It feels like there's a lot of force, like resistance, and you just want to kind of gently get that off the bottom before the pot starts to get too hot. So I'm going to work on doing that, and I just very gently do this because I don't want to ruin my curds. We're almost 30 minutes in and you can see that the whey is starting to separate. Hopefully you can. And the curds, some of them are big, some are small. Like, I don't really worry too much about the size, but I do cut them if they're like huge. So like that one, I'll just stick the tip of my thing in and press it until it breaks. It's been the 45 minutes, so now I'm going to scoop out the curds out of here, and I'm actually going to pour off some of the whey first because I don't need that much in there. We normally give our whey to the pigs or the chickens and they absolutely love it, but there's really no need for us to keep the whey whenever we have milk to use instead. So you can use whey for ricotta cheese. You can use it in place of water in your recipes, like if you're baking something or just cooking, you can use the whey instead. It's probably going to be easier to do this with my hands, so I'm going to go wash my hands and then just scoop it with my hands. I'm really hoping all this will fit in here. This is the biggest colander, like strainer, sieve, whatever you want to call it, I have. And I'm doing this because I'm making a traditional cheddar cheese. So I know a lot of people get the farmer cheese and farmer cheddar cheese, whatever it's called, mixed up with a regular cheddar cheese. So I'm going to be making a traditional one. So we're going to actually go through the cheddaring process and everything like that. It's been 10 minutes, so now I really don't know how to go about this, but I need to flip this over. I don't want it to spill back in the whey, and I don't want it all to fall apart either. I don't know if I can just hold it, if it's like knitted together well enough. Okay, that worked better than I thought it would. So the 10-minute time is up and the water is really nice and steamy. So now what we need to do is cut this into 4 sections. I'm probably going to do it in quarters, and we need to make sure that each side gets steamed. So we're going to do the best we can because there's a few pieces that are just kind of hanging out in there. And it is kind of hard to cut because they are formed together now. So now that they're turned up like this, I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes again, put the lid back on and let them steam, and then we're gonna come back and flip them over. So this is all part of the process, the cheddaring process, and achieving a traditional cheddar cheese. And I know this may seem like a lot of work, and that's why a lot of people cut corners whenever it comes to cheddar cheese, and I think that's why so many people like the farmer's cheese, like farmer's cheddar cheese, whatever it's called, because that one you don't have to do any of this stuff with. So this one is a traditional, and we are going to be putting it in the fridge to age. So this one is a bit of a longer process. So the 10 minutes is up again, and now we are going to flip it. And this entire time, the heat is still on, so it's steaming. I don't know if you can see the steam on camera or not, but I'm actually gonna turn this down because they're getting a little bit too hot. So now 10 minutes again, and that is the last time. I'm just gonna cut these into, I don't know, probably, we're just gonna play by ear. Probably 1-inch cubes is what I'm gonna do. Okay, so I got these cut up, and now I'm gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of salt. And I'm trying to decide if I want to do the red mineral salt, because if you use a pink salt, it will leave some pink, like maybe like markings in your cheese. So I'm trying to decide if I want to do that or pickling salt. I may do pickling salt since this is like going to be inside the cheese, and then typically in a salt brine, which is going on over here, I do the red mineral salt in there because it's just kind of on the outside. So I think I'm going to do the pickling salt in this today. Since we just now sprinkled the salt on, we do not have to do a salt brine for this cheddar cheese. Like the Colby Jack, the Colby that I'm doing in the salt brine over here, it actually has to be in a salt brine because we did not salt it. So it is in a salt brine right here. But this one, since we put the cheese in the bowl and tossed the cheese in it, it does not need a salt brine. So that takes place of that. I'm waiting on my water to come to a boil, and then we're gonna put the cheese curds into the cheese mold, but we have to disinfect this first. So I'm just gonna pour boiling water over top of the cheesecloth, the cheese mold, and then also this part of my sink. It looks dirty, but it's not, it's just stained. It's just where it's old. Okay, so what I did was lay one layer over, and then I'm gonna put this press on top, and it needs to firm press. So that is, I just guess on this, I truly have no idea, but I'm gonna start with 3 cast iron skillets, and It needs to firm press for 30 minutes, and then obviously we're gonna have to add more weight, and it's going to press for 12 hours overnight. So this is obviously not enough weight, but I'm afraid it's gonna fall, so I need to let this press, and then probably within the 30 minutes, maybe at 15 minutes, I'll come and add another skillet, because cheddar cheese is very, very hard to press because it's gone through the cheddaring process, and a lot of that whey and stuff is already gone. So here are my cheeses, and as you can see, I did a quick Google search and it said that it was fine to dry them next to each other. It said just don't store them like long term in the same bag or anything like that. So I'm just not going to age them in the same bag, like they'll each get their own bag. But as you can see, I got way more cheddar than I did Colby, and the only difference was half a gallon of milk and the calcium chloride that I added to the cheddar over here. So I will definitely be adding calcium chloride every time because I really think that that was the difference. As you can see, I need to work on pressing because the wheels are not perfect, and this is because the mold, I don't know why, but the plunger that goes down inside the mold, not really sure what the technical name is, but it has space so the cheese like comes up around it. I hate that, but I don't really know what else to do to fix that. So this is the side that was up last night and that was the bottom. But the marbling is because of the uneven size curds, and that's not mold, it's just like a really light spot of cheese in there. And then this is what the salt brine does if you use the Redmond real salt or pink Himalayan. You can see the little pink speckling. That's why most people use the pickling salt. So you can use whatever, and I may switch to the pickling salt. I'm still not sure because this doesn't bother me, but if I was to give it to somebody else, they'd probably think it was something bad and throw it away. So I may just do that since I do plan on giving cheese to my family and stuff. But these are my first two wheels, Colby and Cheddar, and for the most part I think it's been a success, but now we just need to get these dried out and then vacuum seal them and then get them in the fridge to store.